Good morning, everybody.
Morning.
Just wait for everybody's sound to kick in.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning. Can everybody hear us?
Yes, turn my
Yes, jolly good. Morning, Brian. Nice to see you. Right, so welcome everybody and to this Sporting Heritage webinar. So we're going to survive and thrive in a post-COVID world this morning. It's going to be quite an informal session, although if any of you have attended Joe's sessions before, you know that it's going to be absolutely packed with information. So we're going to crack through quite a lot of content, but there will be opportunities for you to chip in with your own examples, and it'd be quite good to share people's experiences as we go along. So without further ado, I will hand over to Jo and she will take the session forward. Over to you, Jo.
Thank you, Fran. Morning, everybody. I will quickly share my screen. Here we go. So, can everybody see that?
Yes.
Yep.
Brilliant. So, for those of you that have been to any of my webinars before, you know I end up cramming so much information into an hour and it runs away with me. So I was wanting to try and make this only a few slides, but things kept coming in that I just thought I need to include that. So if we go over, I apologise, but I did want to make sure that we got everybody to talk about their experiences. It is going to be an extremely quick whistle-stop tour. I'm hoping I'll provide you with some useful information, top tips, tools and templates. I can't provide you with the monetary, unfortunately, which is what I said in the income diversification webinar, and I can't provide you with a one-size-fits-all business plan that's going to help you moving forward. But hopefully what we can do is provide you with links to those templates and strategies that you can use moving forward, and that the information I provide you at least helps inform what it is that you do. And also I'm hoping that if some of you that are attending today have done different strategies or plans that have worked during lockdown and also looking at moving forward, then you're happy to share. That was the whole point of doing it as meeting, so that everybody could chat to each other. So please do use the chat function to talk to each other and share things, and Fran will try and share links as well to everybody. If I do go over the hour, you will all get the slides, plus it's War and Peace of notes again, which are hopefully really useful notes for you. So you will all get these with the different links if you have to leave before we've finished, but I will endeavour to try not to go over too much. So this is the agenda. I'll do some quick housekeeping rules. Then we'll look at the last 10 months, what's happened during lockdown, what happened when organisations were reopening, and the lessons that people learned. So that's a good example for where we can share information with each other. Where we are now, so that's just looking at the situation that we're currently in with regards to COVID, and also the government's perspective on a sort of a government scale, what this has meant for them and what this means for us in a strategic sense. Then what next moving forward? So the things that you need to consider as an organisation, or if you're just an individual, but some of the things that you need to consider moving forward into 2021, and some useful links to where you can access support and advice and information. And then again, the final two slides, as you know, I tend to put together lots of different information, advice and support and templates. And if we get time for questions, fab. So housekeeping. We've done it as a meeting because we wanted people to talk and engage, but you can also do that through chat as well. If you don't want to be videoed, or you don't want to be in the recording, then by all means switch off your video, but I can see that you're all quite happy about that. Do talk to each other. If you have any questions or you want to share any thoughts or views on social media, please do follow me on social media if you want to, on Twitter at Joe Boardman, or Sporting Heritage at Sporting History. And again, there are all the details there of their social media accounts, which are really useful. I do tend to use my Twitter account quite a lot with regards to business. So yeah, if you want to follow me, please do. This is me, 20 years working with charities, social enterprises and cultural organisations across a wide range of subjects, predominantly around organisational change and development, income diversification, and at the moment I'm doing a lot of work around recovery planning. I'm currently working with Sporting Heritage as their business development manager, but also working with lots of other organisations looking at how I can help them redevelop and review and revise their business plans, their financial plans, and their income diversification strategies. So let's have a quick look at the last 10 months. So what I wanted to do was talk about the last 10 months and some of the negatives that we've had over the last 10 months. And over the next 2 slides, I'll stop at the end of the second slide so that you can, what I'd like you to do is tell me some of the issues that you've had and some of the challenges. And if you've overcome those challenges, what you've done. And then, of course, if people are interested in that or they want to try what you've tried, if you're willing to share with them, that'd be brilliant. So starter for 10 really is the loss of income, which for everybody during the first lockdown was massive. I don't think anybody really knew in March what was going to happen and how this was going to pan out. And I don't think any of us thought that, you know, we'd be here in December in a similar situation, a similar predicament. But obviously what happened for everybody was when we lost income and you lost ticket sales or you lost visitors or you lost audiences, then actually what you had to do as individuals and organisations is think about the future financial viability and what it was that you had to do in order to shore your own organisation up. So those were some of the key areas for me. I think the income element and people then having to review what they spent their money on, review their financial management practices. That was massive for everybody. So it would be useful at the end of these 2 slides if anybody got some positives out of that loss of income and whether they were able to do different and innovative new things to generate more income for their organisations. The other thing that I know was a massive impact on organisations was looking at the strategic management and the operations really. So how do you manage your organisation and maintain your organisation with reduced staff or volunteers? If your organisation was massively reliant on volunteers, did you have volunteers that were in the vulnerable group, that were worried or concerned about actually coming in and doing things within your organisation? Were your staff on furlough? Therefore, if they're on furlough, they're not allowed to do any work. So how did you cope with that loss of human resource within your organisation, but also the loss of financial resource, because you still have to pay your bills and you still have to do things. So thinking about the things that you had to do during that time when you had a reduced staff input and a reduced volunteer input. Also, the third thing that I think everybody had to do was look at how they diversified their income. So lots of people had to, whether they liked it or not, and I'm sure you were amongst those, embrace digital. Some of them kicking and screaming, some of them actually, you know, really embraced it and looked at how they could repurpose some of the physical work that they were doing within their organisations, but do it online and look at it digitally. So were the things that you did within your organisation where you repurposed some of the work that you did you all become Zoom zombies? Did you run webinars? Did you run quizzes, or did you repurpose educational packages? Did you do virtual tours so that people could still visit your organisation or find out about your organisation, your exhibits or your collections? And actually, did you have to learn about digital development and digital platforms very, very quickly? And are there things that you could share with people that actually they may find useful because you learned very, very quickly in doing that? Were you also able to respond and react to the government guidelines? I will mention social media a lot during this presentation because, again, the way that I responded to government guidelines and found out about things that were happening was through Twitter. Twitter for me over the past 10 months has been amazing. So I follow key individuals and organisations on Twitter, like the funders, so Heritage Fund, Arts Council. I follow the government, Number 10, Department Culture, Media and Sport, DCMS. I also follow organisations like ALVA, Association of Leading Visitor Attractions, ALVA, have been extremely good at providing very up-to-date information that's going to impact on cultural, arts and heritage sector, whether that's through government, whether that's through funders. But I followed those alongside the usual suspects like the Heritage Alliance, like the Museums Association, AIM, or the National Archives. But social media platforms for me gave me that opportunity to find out what was happening as soon as it was happening. And I think that for me is what's enabled me to sort of respond and react and provide information to my clients about government and what was happening in government. And I've put in again about the decrease in funding and investment into your heritage organisations, but this is more to do with any of you that put in funding applications to funders prior to lockdown. It may be that you were looking to redevelop buildings, or you were looking at new projects and programmes, and you submitted just before lockdown and got told either computer says no and we're not doing it, so your bid's finished, or your bid's been put on hold. And all that information and that work that you wanted to do over 2020 stopped. And I think that was another key thing for organisations, the fact that over the majority of 2020, there have been very few open programmes available for people to look at developing new projects and programmes. The majority of funding that's been out has been around emergency and recovery and repurposing and shoring up. So it'll be interesting to know if any of you did have projects and programs that were literally good to go, and obviously they've all been put on hold. So that's the first one on the net. These are just some of the issues that I've found. The next one was really after lockdown, looking at reopening and how many of you reopened, or the things that you needed to consider during reopening, bearing in mind as well that some of the funding was only just coming out, some of the emergency funding was only just coming out, so actually you may have had to use your own surpluses or reserves to look at the operational issues and the barriers that you would have to overcome to reopen. And that might be, again, looking at the staffing, so actually taking people off furlough, or if you didn't have staffing, you had volunteers, if you've got a limited number of volunteers that were comfortable about coming in. So it's that thing about, did you have to train people, train staff and volunteers when they were coming in? What did you do? Did you do welcome videos so that audiences and visitors that were going to come were able to virtually go onto your website and find out what it is that they could expect coming to visit your heritage organisation? Were there barriers? Did you find it difficult, or actually did you find ways to get around that? And were you able to make sure that you complied with all the COVID regulations that were needed, whether that's PPE, whether that's signage, the one way in, one way out? How did you manage those areas? And did you have any knock-on negative effect with your visitors' numbers? Obviously with COVID and social distancing you will have done, but was any of it due to a fear factor, people not wanting to come in and not wanting to visit? Or for you, did you find that more people came and that more people stayed a longer amount of time and probably engaged with you more? Income versus expenditure. Obviously, when you reopen, you've got limited numbers coming in, so therefore your income's going to go down, ticket sales go down. But also if you've got other facilities, if you've got a building or a site that people visit, the fact that you may have a shop or a cafe and people wouldn't then go into those areas. Or did you then repurpose and have an online shop? And then looking at marketing and communication, because I think one of the things over the past 10 months, again, that we're talking digital, we're talking social, we're talking how you have to transfer things online. Did you have the right staff or volunteer knowledge and expertise to be able to move things online? Or again, as I said earlier, did you learn very quickly? Was it a very steep learning curve? Or did you talk to partners and find out from partners what they did? What sort of things did you do? And how did you make your heritage organisation and the things that you did flexible? How did you flex what it is that you do within your organisation? How did you adapt to the new normal, and how did you flex the work that you did? I'm going to shut up now, and I'm going to ask people if there are things that they did that I've mentioned in those past 2 slides that they would like to share with everybody. And if we just say 5 or so minutes, it'd be really useful. And if there are things that you want to share with everybody. Anybody got any things that they want to share about what they did over lockdown, or what they did during when they were reopening? You all seem to be very quiet. Oh,
Start then.
hello there. Who's that?
Kevin.
Kevin. Hi, Kevin.
Well, it's a while since I've seen you. You haven't changed. You can certainly talk still.
What did you do, Kevin? How were you impacted?
Well, we're probably different to other museums. I don't know whether museums are here, but our building wasn't suitable to open because of its shape. When the first lockdown came in, you know, we were caught off guard. We didn't, and we're all volunteer. Majority of our volunteers are over the age of 70, so we just decided to shut down.
Yeah.
The government helped us because we have 2 buildings and they both got rateable value. We got £20,000 out of the government, so that helped us. We have membership worldwide, that helped us. So financially, we did all right. Yes, we've lost our income, but it's changed now. We've just updated our website. It was a nice coincidence. We've got 3 phases of it. The basic part of the website for the general public, we updated that, and then now we've developed a membership section.
Yeah.
And that's turned out good. And we have discounts in the shop and the membership section, all that. So our shop has taken off.
Yeah.
Really well. Our next section, which we've paused at the moment, will be all our resources will be on there for members to look at and do research. But we've sort of decided not to open this year. The cost for us to open weighed up against the income.
Yeah.
Wasn't worth it. Because we only open on weekends and public holidays, and from April until October. So we've used this to network, and what's happened is I've picked up an awful lot of very good new exhibits. We've taken things from we've been working with the National Museum, the Royal Navy, items that are not relevant to their collection and relevant to us. They're passing over to us on loan first, and then signing them over to us. That's been good. Some other items have come in, and they're quite large items. So what I've done on 2 important things, one on a ship that sunk. We've got a big model over 3 meters long. I've done an article on that. We did a collaborative with the Mary Rose Museum during shutdown, where they restored a bullion box. I've done an article on that. They're both coming out in the paper in the next 2 weeks. So that gives us publicity. So we're working that way. And I think it's progressed us a lot for, you know, most of us are retired people. We're all old, and this pushing us onto Zoom, and that's helped. When we're not zoomed out, we're using it because we have members overseas and members all over the country. But now our board meetings, our trustees meetings are on Zoom. When we can, we will have 1 or 2 where we actually meet up. But now it allows people that are in Wales or Scotland to be members of our board, and we can still run the society. We've got an AGM. We've got an AGM next Sunday, and we've got members from Norway and overseas that are going to join our AGM who wouldn't normally join it. And I've learned how now. It's just pushed me. I've learned how to do polls on there. You know, what do you call it? But voting and all this. So vote people in and out, all that sort of thing. But I find networking and finding what other museums are good. I think you've got to mix. You've got to get into organisations. I'm sorry, I meant to join Sporting Heritage a few months ago, but things have been so busy. Sonia's been on my case about it. So I am going to speak to our treasurer and we'll join in. But like the South East Museums Development Programme, I got immersed in that. And now I'm on their advisory panel. Because being on that, I find out what other museums are doing. and find out what they do best.
I think from my perspective, listening to you, these are the sort of things that I think there's quite a few organisations during lockdown that have used the time, and I know it's really difficult because you've got lots of things to think about, finances and operations and strategy and governance, but actually looking at reviewing your digital presence and your social presence, so looking at the website and whether your website's fit for purpose, and looking at repositioning it and refocusing it, looking at social media, partnerships, key things. That one thing I found over the past 10 months is there's been so much advice and information out there, and it's still out there, people wanting to share, people wanting to work together, people wanting to share best practice. So it's really useful to hear that, and it's nice to hear, because I think we have all, myself included, been kicked into and dragged into using Zoom or whatever platform, kicking and screaming. Well, we've had to learn, but I think one thing that it's shown you is that actually you can do meetings online. You can widen out your audiences, so that you've now got a global audiences, so you're now reaching new target markets. You can increase your board and have, if your board was weak or didn't have the people on it that it needed, actually you can use online now to increase that, and that's been embraced by the Charity Commission as well. So there are lots of positives, I think, so it's really useful to hear that. Yeah. Kevin, thank you. And I think, if people were interested in talking to you further about some of the stuff that you're doing, would you be okay to talk to people about that?
Yeah, well, we'll see I'm quite happy to speak to anybody, help anybody, because people help us. I wouldn't be where I am today if people didn't help me. So we're very open, we're an accredited museum now. When we were going for accreditation, we visit other museums. They would say, "Oh, we're accredited. That's what we've done," and close the book and walk off. No, we'll show people everything, because, I think we've got to work as a team. We all want to survive.
Definitely.
Mention volunteers. Going back to volunteers.
I'm going to quickly, a couple of minutes, Kevin. Then I'm going to have to carry on, if that's all right.
We use a newsletter for that. And we've had occasional Zoom, invite them all in, just so we can keep them up to date and let them know what we're doing.
Brilliant.
Them to just drift off.
And no, thank you.
I'll be very quick. You mentioned about funding. We had done an expression of interest with the lottery in February, and now I've been, I know Sarah Wicks there, and I wrote to her, and she wrote back and said anybody that put an expression of interest in before March has got to start the whole process again.
Yeah.
And she's mentioned a few of the aims of it, and I think it should be called the community board, the community lottery. It should be put into that, because it's not really up for heritage now. It's terrible. So I'm not very happy with that. But I keep the funders, like Historic England, who I'm working with, Housekeeping Charity Fund. I send them updates regularly so they know where we are, so they know I haven't drifted off the planet.
Yeah.
So I think.
Thank you. Thank you.
Keeping your name in there and getting people to know about you helps. And one last thing you said about, I haven't got time to do Twitter or anything like that, but by me networking, other people find out things, they pass it on to me. So that saves me time.
No, and that's fine. I think whichever way suits, but I think partnerships have been key and are going to be key moving forward, because funders are going to be looking at collaboration and how you work in partnership with others. I'm going to stop you there. I've got to move on. So that's some of the negatives that have turned into positives, and what I want to do is look at some of the positives. So talking some of the stuff that Kevin's been talking about, engaging new audiences. So looking at how you can your physical visits, and you can actually look at online visitors as well as physical visitors. And something that somebody else mentioned to me, which was in the Sporting Heritage conference, was actually class your virtual visitors. They are as important as your physical visitors, and I think that's one thing that people have found over the past 10 months is actually you can engage with a global audience, and actually you can do things, whether that's virtual tours or Zoom meetings or Zoom webinars, that actually will engage with an audience that perhaps you wouldn't have engaged with before. So that will help to increase income generation moving forward. There are things that you can think of doing, whether that's a webinar that's going to be charged for on a specific subject, that actually by engaging with those online audiences, you can do things like that. Online activity, we've all increased our online activity. We've had to embrace digital. It's looking at how you can maximize on that engagement And as I said, try and generate income through looking at whether it's webinars, whether it's e-shots you do, whether it's looking at using social media to promote things, or whether it is actually looking at online donations. And I'll talk a tiny bit about that later on. Lots of people went on crowdfunding platforms and looked at crowdfunding during the lockdown. And there are a couple of crowdfunding platforms that have just, crowdfunding projects, sorry, that have come out recently that I've got later on in the slideshow. And also online shops, moving your shop online and being able to do that. Thinking about new and innovative ways of working and reviewing the way that you currently work. So thinking strategically about whether your board of trustees has literally stepped up to the plate, and like Kevin said there, actually being able to get global trustees if you can, but have your trustees taken on the mantle and being able to refocus and look at how they guide the organisation strategically through the 10 months that we've had. Have you got new trustees that have come on board? Have some trustees dropped off? Have you been able to recruit those trustees? And I think, you know, having that robust board is something that's key moving forward. You need to have a robust board that is fit for purpose and that is able to help your organisation move forward. And operationally, having the right people, whether that's staff and or volunteers, but making sure that they've got the right training and the right skills and expertise to be able to move your organisation forward. Things have changed and things are never going to, I don't think, my professional view, things are ever going to go back to how they were before. And in some respects, I don't think they should. I think we've learned a lot over these past 10 months. So actually what you need to ensure is that your operational and strategic team are going to be fit for purpose moving forward. And then actually they are able to help the organisation flex and adapt when the external environment changes, because I think it's going to keep changing for a while at the moment. And obviously, some of you will have been able to deal with those issues and manage those issues because you'll have had emergency funding and or recovery funding. Now, whether that's through Heritage Fund, whether that's through the Arts Council, whether that's through a variety of other grant bodies that have been out there, the majority of grant bodies, I will say, over the past 10 months, put a hold on any open programs and basically just concentrated on COVID resilience programs, and are still doing that. So there is still going to be that COVID resilience support out there. At the moment, Heritage Fund have reopened their small and medium grants. If you hadn't seen that, that opened last week. But the guidance and the priorities for those small and medium grants are still on resilience. It's still on that resilience. It's still on that trying to get yourself so you're going to be fit for purpose moving forward. It's about helping you make sure that your infrastructure is robust, so the foundations within your own organisation are robust. And if you need to buy in external personnel to help you do that, then you can do that. And I think it's going to be like that for quite a while. The main programmes for Heritage Fund are opening in February. But again, like Kevin said, I think there's going to be a refocus of priorities. They will be, as a strategic, non-departmental funding body, which is what they are, public body, sorry, they will be refocusing some of their priorities as a public body, because they've had to themselves repivot and refocus and adapt in the new normal. If you have had emergency funding and or recovery funding, I'm hoping that it's been really useful. I'm hoping it's managed to offset any of your on costs that you've had to pay out. We still have to pay insurance, we still have to pay lights and heat, etc. But I'm also hoping that it's allowed you to review and revise any of your plans that you've got. So looking at your marketing plans, looking at your business plans, and looking at your income diversification plans as well, so that actually as an organisation you are able to adapt to what might happen in 2021 and have plans in place. And one of the positives, I think, that from my perspective that has come out, and I think the heritage and cultural sector has been key in this, is the awareness and the importance of mental health and well-being. I think when we came out of lockdown, people wanted to be outside, they wanted to enjoy things, they wanted to enjoy art, culture, heritage, whatever it was. And I think that is still the case. And I think it's possibly put the cultural sector in a different light, people realizing that we need these things. We need theatre, we need heritage, we need arts, we need museums, because these things help our mental health and well-being. But it should also, some of you I know have looked at using some of the projects that you were doing and are actually developing new projects. So looking at perhaps, say, sporting memories and reminiscence projects. So looking at how you can adapt some of the projects that you've got to set up reminiscence packages or educational packages that could go into new target markets and new audiences, and look at things like that and how you can do that. And I know Chris is here today, and I know that's one of the things that Chris has been doing, and that Sporting Memories and the project that he's done is something I think moving forward is going to be really useful for lots of organisations to look at those markets that perhaps you weren't able to access before. So working with those vulnerable groups that are still going to be isolated for us, a period of time. So think about who it is that you can work with and some of the things that people have done to develop or diversify existing offers so that they can generate different income, engage with new people, new organisations and new markets, are the things that you can do that lockdown has helped you realise that you could do moving forward into 2021. So that's just some of the positives. There's a whole list of stuff that I've got in my notes about different things that organisations have done and how they've used the lockdown and reopening to try out new things. And remember, being innovative doesn't mean you have to do new things. There are lots of things out there that you can repurpose for yourselves and that will work for you, that other people have done. And if people are willing to share what they've done, then that makes it so much easier. You don't have to start from scratch. And if you're working in partners, like Kevin was mentioned, networking with other people, you then get that strength and extended knowledge and understanding to actually look at different ways that you can work as organisations. So I'm going to move on now to look at where we are now. I'm not going to talk massively about this, but obviously we as England moved into our 3-tier system on the 2nd of December. And I don't know where you all are and what tier you are in, but I know that I'm in the highest tier, unfortunately. So here in Sheffield, we're on the highest tier. And if you haven't got all the information about what you can do in the different tiers, the medium tier, visitor attractions can reopen, but they've got to close by 11 o'clock and operate in a COVID secure manner. And the rule of 6 still applies. Public attendance at outdoor and indoor events is permitted, but limited to whichever is lower, 50% capacity or 4,000 people outdoors and 1,000 people indoors. High alert, again, museums, galleries and heritage attractions can open, but must ensure that COVID secure, etc., etc. So the only alert really where indoor museums and heritage attractions must close is the very high alert, which is what we're in Sheffield. But I also know that quite a few organisations have made the judgment call not to open over Christmas and reopen in 2021. So obviously it's up to you as an individual organisation to work out whether it's worthwhile economically, socially and environmentally to open or not. And there's only you that can really make that decision. Northern Ireland are currently in a 2-week circuit breaker, which will end on the 11th of December. Wales will, from Friday the 4th of December, museums and galleries are shutting. And in Scotland, they're currently in a 5-tier system. Their level 4 measures are going to be lifted on the 11th of December. So that's just the basics on where we are now. And that's just a map showing you the different tier systems. So very high is the red, which is where I am. high is the orange, green is medium, and then you've got the Scottish 5-tier system. You've got Northern Ireland on full lockdown, and you've got Wales as well. So what's going to happen in 2021? Again, there are a range of things that you need to consider strategically. You don't have to go into too much detail, but obviously, in the spending review on the 25th of November, Rishi Sunak said that the UK's economic emergency had only just begun, and that these are the economic damage for the government and for the UK is likely to be lasting. So there are so many things on a strategic scale that we need to consider and think about, because it's going to have a knock-on effect to us as a heritage sector. I've got more detailed notes about the recession and how that impacts, which I will pass on to you. We've got to think about the government's now got to pay for COVID. Rishi Sunak announced that the government budget deficit is expected to be 394 billion this year, which is the highest level in peacetime history. They are also, the government has estimated that tax increases and funding cuts need to be around 27 billion. But the Institute of Fiscal Studies has suggested that a more realistic figure is going to be 40 billion. The government priorities at the moment are the NHS, defence and tackling unemployment. And then government funding, thinking about where the funding is going to come from. Charity funding, the government's cutting the aid budget by 15 billion, from 15 billion, sorry, by 5 billion, so it's going to be 10 billion. The government recognises that there is going to be an increased demand for services across a whole range of sectors, whether that's charity sector, heritage sector or cultural sector. But it's also thinking about how it can invest in those sectors to make sure that they are fit for purpose moving forward. I know within the cultural sector, we've had 1.57 billion. Whether there's going to be any more, we don't know. But I suspect that organisations like AIM, the Museums Association, the Heritage Alliance, will all be keeping tabs on that and liaising with Department of Culture, Media and Sport. The impact that the government's decisions and what they prioritise has on the heritage sector is going to be key, really, because what you need to think about as an organisation is whether you had any surplus and were able to cope during the pandemic, whether you had reserves or whether you had quite a substantial surplus, or whether accessing the emergency and recovery funding has enabled you to review what it is that you do, but also put you on an even keel until April 2021. I don't know what everybody's had, but obviously those, funding wise, those are the things that you need to think about, is how are you going to manage to come out of this post April 2021? What are the things that you're planning to put in place to generate that income, to increase those reserves so they either go back to what they were before lockdown, or you actually are able to develop some reserves. Emergency funding, as we know, is now tapering off. We've had emergency funding from HF and Arts Council, Historic England. We've had Architectural Heritage Fund doing things as well. We've had the Community Fund and lots of other trusts and foundations. Obviously, Heritage Fund have now reopened their small and medium grants, but I will say that that budget, everybody, is tiny. So the budget that's left for this financial year, which is what they're running their small and medium grants off at the moment, is approximately 10 million for the whole of the country. So that is tiny compared to what they normally have. And obviously, they're going to reopen the large grants in February and looking at the new financial year from 2021. But we don't know what's going to happen post April 2021 and how things are going to move forward. If the vaccines that are coming out work, that's brilliant, and then things may start to get back to normal in 2021. But I would say, if you are planning to put in any funding applications to whether it's a grant or to a trust and foundation, or whether it's to a lottery funder, there is going to be so much competition. So you need to make sure that your application and submission is as watertight as possible. And you need to think about the cost and the demand for your service as well as a heritage organisation. You need to work out whether you can do loss leaders, i.e. the cost of doing things is going to outweigh the amount of income that you're going to get in from doing it, because you want to do it to engage with a wider audience, or to work with new partners, or to develop a new project. You need to work out quite clearly and be very focused about where you are going to generate income and make those surpluses, and where you're going to make a loss. And the things that you're doing where you're making a loss, can you really afford to continue to do them? Is it part of your social impact, part of your mission, your aim, or is it something that on a temporary basis you could just stop and halt until you get yourselves back onto a financial even keel? These are the sort of things that you need to think about as an organisation. And also you need to think about the staffing and the volunteers that you've got, because you're going to be impacted by the fact that if you've had staff that are furloughed, you've got nobody to do things. You've got nobody to help develop plans. You've got nobody to look at operational management. You've got nobody to help with funding applications. And also, is your volunteer body going to be the same moving forward? Have you lost volunteers because of COVID and because of worries and concerns? So you need to think about all those things and look at what it is that you're planning to do in 2021 and the cost of what it is that you're planning to do in 2021. Because we need to cut our cloth accordingly, I think, in 2021 is going to be a transitional year. So you definitely need to cut your cloth accordingly to make sure that you're able to continue to do what it is that you do as a heritage organisation, but also manage your finances appropriately. The COVID timeline, really, the government at the moment seems to think it's going to take until mid-2021 to bring the virus under control. The one thing that I think is taking the back burner strategically is Brexit. Nobody's really talked a lot about Brexit and the economic impact of that. And are we prepared for it? Is Brexit going to impact on you as a heritage organisation? And you know that as a country, we have millions of pounds, billions of pounds actually in EU grant funding, and obviously that's going to have an impact on some of the things that we do. So we need to think about that. And also, you know, how much COVID funding have we had? As a cultural sector, we've probably, I think, the DCMS has given us 1.57 billion, but obviously we've had more money from other organisations, other trusts and foundations that have provided us with funding. I think what's been really good about COVID and the funding that's come out is that actually the funding's been allowed to be spent on core costs, which we've never had before, and I don't think we're ever going to get again once we come out of the COVID crisis. I think we're going to go back to business as usual with funders, where they will only give you a percentage of core costs and on costs. But again, we've got to wait and see what happens in April 2021. How do we manage that funding gap? So are you as an organisation maximising on the tax reliefs that you've got within your heritage organisation, things like gift aid and all the other tax reliefs that you can look at? I know there've been funding and grant funding that's been out for COVID, but have you looked at things like gift aid and the different tax reliefs? And again, the notes that I've got will give you the links to all the different tax reliefs that are available for you. Have you started to, or have you already developed a financial sustainability plan, an income diversification plan, or a fundraising recovery plan? If you haven't, is it something that you're going to look at and do? Because I think, as I say, we're going to go into a new normal in 2021. It's going to be a transitional phase. So you need to look at where your money is going to come from, whether that's grants, whether that's social investment, whether that's donors, community fundraising, but also look at where your income is going to come from. So I think actually looking at developing those sort of plans are going to be key now, especially moving forward. And think about the opportunities. Kevin's mentioned some of the things that lockdown have helped him do. Look about, you know, thinking about developing those partnership opportunities, thinking about some of the people that you can work with, some of the projects that you've developed that you may not have developed if it wasn't for COVID, whether it's an educational project, whether it's virtual tours or blogs or webinar workshops or new lines in online shops. Think about all those different things and that you've done, or how you've repurposed some of your existing offers and linked in with new audiences. So look at those opportunities and look at how you can develop those opportunities moving forward into 2021. And also look at whether you can review some of the charges and the fees that you have within your organisation. Have you reviewed fees before? Have you looked at how much you're charging? Can you tier them for different audiences, whether that's community, whether that's public, or whether that's actually corporate? And think about what it is that you might be able to do. As I say, there is funding still out there. So there are opportunities for you to access money to do that internal development and that internal infrastructure development. But now's the time to do it. As the previous 9 months have been, really, is to start looking at doing that if you're not already doing it. So from a strategic perspective, that's what the government was doing. Now, this is looking at you internally as organisations. What do you need to consider to help you become more resilient moving forward? So again, from my perspective, you have to start with a robust infrastructure. So is your governance fit for purpose? Have you got a robust and effective responsive board? We've just had Trustees Week in the 2nd to the 6th of November this year, with lots of information that came out. But one of the things that everybody's been talking about over the past sort of 8-9 months is, you know, have you got the right board to help you move forward? And I think if there's one thing that COVID will have shown you as organisations is whether your board is fit for purpose and able to help you move forward in a robust and resilient way. Have they got the skills, the commitment and the ability to help the organisation adapt and flex and become more resilient? There are quite a few organisations out there that can provide you with information that you need with regards to the must-haves, the mandatory things that you must have within your board. Charity Commission is the first one. I mean, the Charity Commission have brought out recently 5-minute guides for trustees on key areas that you need to consider, so around roles and responsibilities. They've also got an easy to understand welcome guide too, which is useful. Even if you've got directors and not trustees, things like this are actually, you can use this information to help develop your organisation and develop your board. Also, you know, all new trustees should have an induction pack. So I have within my resource library a very easy to read welcome pack that all trustees should have, which lists their roles, responsibilities, the policies, the procedures, and the things that trustees and boards should have in place, and looking at how you can develop effective meetings. Obviously, Kevin's mentioned about doing online meetings. Got information about how you can make a meeting effective online, the sort of things that you need to consider. But the one thing that obviously your board should be doing is providing you with that strategic focus and direction. So looking at your business strategy within your organisation and amending it and reviewing it and updating it to reflect where you currently are. If your board isn't doing that, then you need to sit down and think about whether that board is right for you, or whether you can actually bring in new blood into your board, which doesn't necessarily mean you have to have new trustees or new directors. You can bring in professionals that could come in on an interim basis to help you with specific tasks and specific areas. But organisations like the Charity Commission, National Council for Voluntary Organisations, Get Legal, and the Small Charities Coalition have all got information that will help you, that you can pass on to your board, because the one thing that you need to have is that robust board moving forward. The second thing is thinking about leadership and operations and making sure that your staff and volunteers are happy and are comfortable moving forward with what it is that you're planning to do within your organisation, that you've provided them with the appropriate training, so they've got the right skills and expertise within your organisation, that you've got the right development plans in place for your staff and volunteers, that you've got the right health and safety procedures, and also whether you're working with partners and looking at who you can collaborate with. If you've collaborated with people during lockdown, then think about how you could collaborate with them again moving forward. It's good practice to look at actually sharing expertise across partners. B, it's looked on favourably by all funders and social investors if you're doing something that's in collaboration with somebody else. But also it will help you look at how you can diversify your services, your activities, your projects and your programmes. Because by merging or working with another organisation, you're actually able to provide a wider range of opportunities for visitors, audiences and communities. So think about the things that you can do and the different projects that you can do and who it is that you're going to be working with. But make sure that everybody's engaged. So make sure that your staff are engaged, that they're involved in developing these operational action plans. Make sure that your volunteers are engaged and that you've got the right information and advice out there for your volunteers moving forward. And again, you can get information with regards to staff development and volunteer development through NCVO, through Small Charities Coalition, Association of Independent Museums, your museum development network. I will say, and I know I'm from the north, but the South East Museum Development Network has produced some fantastic stuff. And I know Sonia and Kevin have probably accessed a lot of this as well. Whether that's around reopening, but lots of different templates and toolkits that they've provided that will help you. As I say, all of this is going to be in the notes that I'm going to send through to you, or that Fran's going to send through to you. And she's probably, I'm hoping she's putting up some links now. So I'm going to quickly stop there and just look at the chat and to see whether some people have put in different things about the chat. So Chris has talked about reminiscence. So if anybody's interested in reminiscence, please talk to Chris or link in with Chris. Again, he's put in there about using WhatsApp to help with CPD opportunities. But yeah, please feel free to share information, guys, on chat and do, because I think, again, some of you have done some great stuff and I've got plans. So some of you will have reopening plans that you had after the first lockdown. Some of you will have repurposed your business plans or your action plans. If you've got things that you can share, please do, because I think that's really useful. I mean, we can provide you with templates, but it's really useful if others have actually got things that have worked. What I want to say, and I've said it throughout the whole of this, is don't reinvent the wheel, really. There are lots of individuals and organisations that have been and done this, so you're not the first and you're probably not going to be the last. So check out who's done similar things. If you Google lots of things nowadays, you can find out organisations that have done things. There are so many webinars and workshops and PowerPoint presentations and templates that you can access that will help you. But think about what other people have done that will help you develop the different plans that you need, the different tools that you need, and how you can actually repurpose some of the things that you're doing moving forward. I'm going to quickly talk about useful information. So I've talked about strategically what the government's doing. I've talked about different things that you need to consider, whether it's to do with governance, whether it's to do with leadership, whether it's to do with plans. What I would say is at the moment, there are currently 3 heritage support programs out that you can access that are free. Now, these 3 programs are called Rebuilding Heritage, Heritage Compass, and Steps to Sustainability. Now, these 3 programs have been funded by the Heritage Fund, and they are about helping you as organisations become fit for purpose, providing you with workshops, one-to-one support, and some of them have a grant element to it as well. Now, Rebuilding Heritage and Heritage Compass have a closing date of the 16th of this month for you to apply as an organisation. And the Steps to Sustainability has 2 strands. One's open now, which is for, I think, Yorkshire and the North. And then there's one opening in January, which is for the South. But as we will be sending you, unless Fran puts the links up within the notes that we've got, it's on the next slide, but I'm just gonna go back to the first slide. So Rebuilding Heritage is run through the Heritage Alliance. If you want to go onto the Heritage Alliance website, but Rebuilding Heritage does have its own website as well. Heritage Compass is run through Cause for, CAUSE, Cause for Arts, Fundraising and Philanthropy. And then Steps to Sustainability is run, just bear with me, through, she said, looking at it, I think it's through Social Enterprise Academy, but I need to check that one out for you. So, but those are free support programs at the moment that can help you do all the things that I was talking about, which was plans, looking at financial management. So think about those if you think you might benefit from those support programs. So just some useful information. Think about e-shots and newsletters and social media as a means to access information. Sporting Heritage has a fantastic monthly newsletter that you can sign up to with information about policies and updates and funding and different things that are happening. So that's really useful. The National Council for Voluntary Organisations has Know How Nonprofit, which is another website which has got lots of free tools, templates and toolkits that you can use. NAVCA, which is the National Association of Voluntary and Community Action, provides a links update for, it's an e-shot, and again, that's lots of policy, funding and useful templates. Small Charities Coalition website has free resources, and the UK Community Foundation actually has a list of all your local community foundations in your area if you're looking for local funding. You should know the ones on the next line: Arts Council, HLF, I've put there, should be HF, Association of Independent Museums, Museums Association, Museum Development Network. Even though obviously you're all heritage organisations, it doesn't matter. If you think about some of the stuff that's come out from the Museum Development Networks, if you think about some of the information that's come out through NCVO or Small Charities Coalition, please do, you know, look to access information from them, because it is free, majority, more often than not. Some of the social investors that are out there and support organisations that you may not have heard of: Charity Bank, Creative United, Key Fund, Social Investment Business and the Architectural Heritage Fund. The Local Government Association has a culture hub as well, which is a really useful organisation for any organisation that's public sector. You've also got the Heritage Alliance, which is the organisation that's running the Rebuilding Heritage programme. You've got Arts Professional, Arts Marketing Association, the Chartered Institute of Fundraising, Course for. So again, there are lots of different organisations. The notes, and I know Fran's frantically writing links down, but there are, the notes will have all the links to these organisations for you. So this slide tells you about the 3 programmes that I've mentioned. It also talks about the Charity Commission 5-minute guides that are available. There is also a charity fundraising hub that's being run through Ecclesiastical Insurance if you're interested. Heritage Digital, which is another Heritage Fund programme, provides free resources, free workshops, events and support for heritage organisations. And that's through Charity Digital in partnership with Naomi Corn Associates and the Media Trust. Again, they have been providing lots of really, really useful information with regards to developing your digital presence as an organisation. The Audience Agency has got Bounce Forwards, and that provides you with insights and services around audience development, and it's got toolkits and resources that you can use. It's also got workshops that you can access. The Cranfield Trust has got financial management toolkits, as has lots of other organisations. The TNA have got a financial management toolkit. They've got information on training, they've got information of reopening archives, and they've also got information on funding opportunities as well. Ironically, TNA at the moment are running an income diversification webinar today as we speak. So these are all the different organisations that can provide you with those tools, those templates and those toolkits that you need to adapt and repivot your organisation. and provide you with those robust plans, but also those plans that are smart, that are relevant and practical for you moving forward. So these are the two that I mentioned right at the beginning. There are two crowdfunders that are out there at the moment nationally. The Art Fund has just launched recently. I think it was launched on the 19th of November. A crowd fund for museums, basically trying to, because they've been oversubscribed with all their funding, they've launched a massive national crowdfunder to try and get people to donate. So far, I think I took this yesterday evening, they've raised £326,000. And then what they're going to do is the money that they secure through this crowdfunding campaign, they're going to then put back into their funds. So if you use Art Fund or have applied to Art Fund before, this money is going to be used for their funding strands. And also, I don't know if any of you have seen this, but the Museums Association have developed a collaborative partnership with Crowdfunder, which is a crowdfunding platform. And they are allowing their museum members to set up individual crowdfunding platform to basically generate your own income through a crowdfunding platform. But it's also providing additional support and advice as well. So if you are a museum, if your heritage organisation is in a museum, or you are a museum, then consider this if you haven't, because they provide you with that support that you need to think about crowdfunding and the sort of things that you have to put in place before you launch your crowdfunding platform. So they're just two of the national things that have recently been developed. There's also a lot of chatter on Twitter at the moment through hashtags called Support Heritage and Support Museums. So follow those as well if you can. I've whizzed through this, and I think I might have actually whizzed through one of the slides where I didn't go over some of the stuff. And I'm looking at my clock now and it's 12 o'clock. So I apologise that I have whizzed through everything so quickly. But has anybody got any questions, or are there anything that I've said where people don't understand or they want any more information and advice? What we are going to do is provide you with the slides, but also these notes that I've got. There's about 7 pages of notes with website links. But if there's anything that you think you want, I'm going to stop sharing this. If there's anything that you think you want that isn't on the information that we sent, please do get in touch with me, because I have an absolutely massive resource library of templates and plan toolkits that I can pass on to you. So if you are wanting to develop your business plan or your action plans, or look at your financial management frameworks, or look at income diversification strategies, please do get in touch with me, because I will have a template that you can use, or I'll have information that you can use that will help your organisation moving forward. And I think one of the things I'll end on this is, now is the time to get all those foundations in place. So to look at developing those plans and those procedures and those frameworks, so that when we do move into 2021, you're in the best position possible moving forward, and you're ready for whatever funding is going to come out and what other things are going to hit us again with regards to COVID-19. I mean, fingers crossed, things are going to get better. But I think one of the things that we need to take on board is that I suspect in 2021, we are going to have to continue to be flexible, be able to adapt, be able to change and review and update our plans over the 12 months of 2021, because I think things are still going to be in flux over that 12-month period. And I am now going to shut up because I can see Fran's face on the screen. Please, any questions, anybody, please do ask.
Yeah, I've got a quick one. Something you mentioned before, and I just wrote down a note, and I can't remember exactly what it was. Maybe if you go to a fund, we're being very careful with our money. We're not rich, but we've got reserves. Okay.
Yeah.
If you go to a funder and you ask for money, to help you progress, and they think, oh, you've got too many reserves. Would they ever think like that at the moment?
At the moment, I think you're very lucky. I think we're all very lucky at the moment, because even the big organisations that have got quite substantial reserves have secure funding through the recovery fund or the emergency fund. I think they may start to look at it moving forward. So if you have got massive amounts of reserves and you're going to a funder, they will say, well, what are you doing with your reserves? I think that's going to happen, I suspect, later on in 2021, or it might happen if you're looking at a big project, because they'll be looking at what match funding you're going to put in place. So where are you getting the funding to match to support the development of a large project? But I think at the moment, and even with the small to medium grants with Heritage Fund that they've just launched, I think there's going to be an element of they're still looking at internal resilience. So what you have to do as an organisation is very clearly explain to them why you still need support to develop your internal resilience. I mean, they will prioritise those organisations that haven't accessed emergency and recovery funding, but that's not to say that they won't support you if you've got the evidence to back up why you need that funding. But do bear in mind that the small to medium grants at the moment aren't being reviewed on a regional basis. They're going to be reviewed nationally. So as we say with any funding application, make sure you answer the questions, make sure you fill the form out as if the person that's reading it knows nothing about you at all. But go on, sorry, Sonia.
No, just a quick one. Is there any deadlines for that small to medium one?
No, it's rolling.
Is it a rolling programme?
Rolling programme. But my philosophy would be, if you have got something that's good to go, get it in sooner rather than later.
Yesterday we couldn't see it, so yeah, and it didn't say whether it was rolling or not. It was just nothing about it. So okay.
Yeah, it's a rolling programme, and there is obviously, if you're a museum, there's the Digital Innovation Fund that the Museums Association have just launched. Yeah. Which is a £25,000 to £50,000. So again, I don't know if you've looked at that, Kevin, as a museum, but that might be something.
Rolling as well.
No, that has got a deadline on it.
Yeah.
And it will be on my notes from my income diversification webinar.
No, I had a part of a note from that and then did write all of it. So
yeah. And then obviously Arts Council have got their project grants, which is open, which has been open for a while, and they've got the Thriving Communities that they've just launched, which is around health and wellbeing, social prescribing.
A note on that, there's a really high match figure on that. You have to 20%, which
20%, isn't it?
Yeah, it's really high. Really, I think it's going to be hard for organisations to do that at the moment.
It is difficult. It is difficult, and I think that's the way that the Arts Council are being innovative about trying to do something different by engaging with the health sector. Yeah,
just that 20% is a lot higher than even it would have been pre-COVID. You wouldn't often have 20% funding.
They do say that with that, if you're partnering with social prescribers or whether it's NHS or other health-based bodies, that actually they may provide some of that match. So if you are working
I've been talking to quite a few of them and they're all kind of hard up as well. So
it's a difficult one. It is a difficult one.
I think it's hard because the minimum for that fund is 25k, isn't it? So your minimum match is 5k.
And it's a year project, so it's literally as soon as you get told on the date in March, you've got 12 months to get that project finished.
It's a shame because it's a really great bit of funding.
Very, very
do some really interesting things with it.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see what comes out in 2021. But I would say, get your plans in place. And if you haven't got a plan, if somebody's done a recovery plan over the past 9 months, has done a plan and it's quite a nice plan, it's an easily understandable one, then please share it. So pass your details on in the chat box. If not, if you are wanting headings, I use an absolutely fantastic one, which is by Key Fund, they are a social investor, but it's a brilliant business plan framework to use. More than happy to send that out. And also the Heritage Fund. If you go on the Heritage Fund website, they've got what they class as their business plan headings as well. So think about that in conjunction with your income diversification plan. Be really realistic and practical about what it is that you can achieve, say, over the next 2 years. Bearing in mind that you might have to change things depending on what happens with the pandemic. and also what happens with funders. Because the one thing that you are going to have to be mindful of over the next 12 months is that funders may change their priorities. Thank you, Fran.
Busy typing away, trying to get all the links up. I know they'll be in all your notes, but just in case.
So I have got all the links in my
I'm going to
notes.
ask that as well, because I missed it because I was writing something else.
I've got lots of different frameworks and plans. So Libraries Connected have produced a reopening guidance for libraries. TNA have produced reopening guidance for archives organisations. I've got lots of different reopening guidance and plan frameworks. But I will say, from my perspective, if we're thinking about people being viable and sustainable, I do like the Key Fund one, because it actually has a more commercial element to it. It makes you look at target markets and the way that you work. So it is a little bit more commercially oriented, but it's a little bit like a pick and mix. You can pick and choose which bits you want to put in. And the same with things like income diversification strategies. Again, I've got templates that I use where you can look at the different types of income that you've got coming in, whether it's through trade, grants, donors, legacy. I used to train at the National Archives on their fundraising for archives programme, so I've got lots of information about fundraising and income diversification as well, which I'm more than happy to share. I am going to shut up now because I've gone 10 minutes over and I am rambling.
Lovely. Well, thank you very much, Jo, for an absolutely packed session, and thank you everybody for your time this morning. As Jo said, we will send around the slide deck and the War and Peace notes that go and support it. I'll also send a link to this recording as well, and this recording will also go up on the Sporting Heritage, excuse me, on the Sporting Heritage YouTube site, so that you'll be able to go back and check it there as well. So that just remains for me to say thank you, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thanks,
Jo and
everybody.
Sonia, do you just want to stay on quickly so we can have a quick chat? Okay,
Yeah.
lovely.
Thank you, everybody.
Oh, Kevin, was there one last thing you wanted to say?
Yeah.
Can you touch base with me about joining the this group?
Yes, yeah, we'll be in touch. Yeah,
Frank will get in touch with you as
yeah,
well.
we're keen to reel you in, so don't worry. You're in our sights now. Don't worry, the diving museum, there's no escape.
And just to say as well, Kevin, that the membership. Sorry, Brian, what did you say?
Sorry, Brian, go on.
I would like to just thank you for all these webinars, because for a newbie into this world, I have found it all very useful. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Apologies for me going so quick and rushing through things as well. I will say, if I could do a webinar over the amount of time that you need for these subject areas, then that'd be fantastic. But I'm hoping that the notes that you will get will be really useful, and you'll be able to then link it into the things that I was saying, because I was mindful that I was just going at a pace. So I apologise for that.
Can I ask Brian a question a sec? I just listened to what he said. Which organisation are you, Brian?
I'm England Netball.
Oh, okay. So you
a lot of today was in a way not relevant, because we're an archive group rather than a museum. But there's lots of useful information in there for us. Thank you.
This is new to you, this sort of world, is it?
Yep.
Well, I spent 40 years under the water, mate, and this was new to me, and it was just by joining in groups like this, especially the South East Museum Development Program. That's where I learned it, just self-taught doing it, but it's good, and that's what you got to do. Just keep doing this and you'll learn everything you need to know. Yeah. I've still got a lot to learn, but I've come a long way considering I knew nothing.
I will reiterate as well, South East Museum Development Network have some fantastic resources, Brian. And I'm obviously, as you can tell from my fantastic accent, I'm not from the South East, but I would put them at a level. They are very good in the information that they provide. So even if you're not a museum, the resources are really useful. Hence me trawling resources from across archives, museum, heritage, cultural and charity sector, because they are all really useful.
Okay, thank you.
Well, thanks very much, Jo.
Jeff, was there something you wanted to say?
It's been nice to see you all. I agree with Kevin. It's good to share these experiences, even though they're not all absolutely pertinent to us in our various places within the UK, but it's been great. Thanks very much, Jo.
Thank you, Jeff.
Lovely. Thank you. Well, have a great rest of your day.